will start with the open hearing of the use permit amended to remove the stipulations prohibiting vehicle access on North 161st Avenue. And Steve will give us that presentation.
Thank you, Chairman Braid, Commission members. This is an item that was before the Commission on November 18th. This request to remove the stipulation from a 2003 approval that prohibited access onto 161st Lane. That item was continued so that the applicant and staff could further evaluate the request. But before I go into what we have done since that last meeting, let me recap what this item is. And that is for the Compass Church, this property right here along the north side of Van Buren, and this is 161st Avenue. It's roughly about 9 acres of property. The church does own this undeveloped piece here. This is an APS substation. This is the Wildflower subdivision here. This is an undeveloped piece of property currently zoned commercial office. And as you go further north along 161st Avenue, you get into the Wade Acres development, zoned agricultural urban, and it is basically at least 1 acre lot sizes here with ranches. The use permit, the original use permit for the church here was approved in 1999. There was a subsequent use permit approved in 2003 that was to add child care to the facility. The site plan for the church was approved in 2004, and just recently there was an addition to the church that was approved in March of this year. At the meeting on the 18th, the Commission heard testimony from the applicant and the residents of Wade Acres. The Commission did provide several recommendations on this issue and asked staff to evaluate some of those recommendations. I'd like to provide a quick update on some of what we have looked at. And one of the first things that was done probably either this week or last week, as a sign, a no outlet sign was installed along 161st Avenue. Another recommendation from the Commission was that to look at restricting parking along 161st Avenue. Again, that concern was raised by residents of Wade Acres that church patrons park along both sides of the street along this area, thus restricting access to Van Buren. And with that being approximately 28 feet of pavement, there was a concern, so engineering staff did evaluate the width of that street and did consult with the fire department. And what the outcome was is that with that width, the 28 feet, there was a requirement to restrict parking to one side of the street only. With that width, there was only room to park on one side of the street and maintain fire access. So what the city will be doing will be installing at least 3 no parking signs along the east side of 161st Avenue, and then a few signs along the rest of 161st Avenue to its terminus here at the cul-de-sac, and roughly about 300 or so foot spacing. The whole entire length of the street has to be signed, and not just this area by the church, because that 28 feet of width is the entire length of the street, and it is a safety issue that was brought to the city's attention, so the signs are going to go along the whole entire length of the street. Also, staff looked at restriping a portion of Van Buren Street, and I'll go to a slide to show that. Eventually. This is 161st Avenue. This is looking westbound Van Buren Street. Here we have a turn lane northwards onto 161st, and then we have a turn lane going into the Wildflower subdivision. This will be restriped as just a general center turn lane. One of the concerns was that there was not enough stacking room here for folks wanting to turn onto 161st Avenue. It's especially during peak times, that folks would stack up into either this turn lane or into a travel lane. So this lane will be restriped, which will allow more room for vehicles to wait as they want to turn northwards onto 161st Avenue. And the church has agreed to share the costs with the city of that restriping effort. Since the last commission meeting, staff did reach out to the applicant. We did meet with the applicant. Staff did also reach out to the residents of Wade Acres. And in the meeting with the applicant, with the church, the applicant did take the commission's suggestion to, and I'll go back here. One of the suggestions was could the church utilize the shared driveway with APS? And the church did look at that and get a pricing for running some kind of surface over there. So instead of accessing 161st Avenue, that they would access that shared driveway. Since the staff report was completed, the applicant did get a cost estimate. It did come in much higher than the driveway, the cost to install this driveway. That is something the applicant could provide additional information for, but they did look at it. It was a budgetary issue. They don't feel that they can move forward with that at this time. So at this point, the applicant is still requesting this driveway here onto 161st Avenue. Staff did also meet with the residents of Wade Acres at a neighborhood meeting. The residents did express the concerns as outlined in the staff report and at the last commission meeting. Again, parking along the street, the additional traffic onto 161st Avenue, difficulty in accessing Van Buren, and as included in the petition that was included in the staff report and the letter to the city that was also included in the staff report. The residents do still oppose any sort of driveway onto 161st Avenue. So unfortunately, staff cannot provide the commission at this time any kind of compromise solution. What we are looking at is the applicant still requesting the original use permit amendment to access 161st Avenue. We do have residents who are opposed to any such action. The staff recommendation is still the same as presented on the 18th. We are recommending approval of the driveway connection, the amendment of that stipulation number 8 of the 2003 approval. In reviewing the materials, while it will have an effect on residents, we do feel it will not be material detrimental to the area and will be reasonably compatible with other uses in the area. We are recommending approval subject to the 3 stipulations in the staff report. With that, the anticipated council hearing, should action be taken tonight, the anticipated council hearing will be Monday, January 25th before the city council. With that, Chairman Bray, that concludes my presentation. I'm available for questions. We also have tonight with us Rebecca Zook, the city's engineering director, as well as Luke Albert, the city traffic engineer.
Thank you, Steve. Are there any questions for staff? Commissioner Short.
No question, but I would just like to commend Steve and the rest of the city staff for carefully listening to the discussion of the commission and taking some actions to resolve some of the issues associated with that intersection. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Would the applicant like to address the commission? Please make sure to state your name and address for the record.
My name is Mark Phillips. I'm with CCBG Architects, representing Compass Church. We're located in downtown Phoenix, 102 East Buchanan Street. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak. I'll be brief. Steve, as you alluded to, was very thorough in their research and then presenting the findings to you. The East Drive, I'll just volunteer the information. The cost range that we were told for different options we looked at would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $50,000 to $70,000, which is about twice the cost of the drive construction. And then on top of that, because of the materials, there'd be additional annual maintenance on top of that, $4,000 to $5,000. So that's the reason the church is seeing that as excessive and something that's not within their means right now. We also consulted as part of that consideration APS, since it's a shared drive. We didn't get to the point where we had any final agreement in place with APS, but they did indicate a willingness to share that drive. They would just be looking for something in writing to formalize that moving forward. One other thing that was asked of the church, and there was no action taken on this, but along 161st Avenue, there are some openings in the screen walls. And it was asked if the church would be willing to close those off to help discourage people from parking on the street and then walking through the screen wall to get onto the church property. Church is certainly willing to do that. There's a total of 5 openings in the screen wall. 3 of them appear to be of no consequence in that they're just a break where parking islands occur. 2 of them we'd have a concern about, that before we would close them off, we would just ask to consult with city staff and verify that they're not in place for engineering, safety requirements, fire department, things like that. One aligns with a hydrant, another one aligns with a backflow preventer for the fire line, and it's actually striped off on the parking lot side so that no one can park there. So we're just not sure exactly what those are. So before we would close those off, we'd want to pursue that and gain verification. The last thing is we were requested to consider traffic control, and the church would be open to that at some point down the road. Our recommendation, as their architect with our experience on similar projects, and it would be the same for them, would be, since we have a new parking configuration and circulation flow, would be to let the church use it for at least 4 to 6 weeks. Oftentimes, things that might appear up front to be congested tend to work themselves out. People learn the patterns and what works well. And oftentimes when you introduce people directing traffic, us as drivers turn our minds off and we don't think. We just wait for someone to tell us what to do. So that is something the church would be open to long term if that presents an issue, and that's something that they would do, I think, of their own accord, whether it was requested of them or not. They are concerned about, obviously, the safety of folks in the church and in the community as well, making sure that everyone can have safe ingress and egress to the property. So if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions for the applicant?
Okay.
Thank you. We do have several individuals that have requested to speak on this item, and I'd ask that Katie just kind of cover the ground rules, if you would please, before we start on these comments.
Thank you, Chairman. The chairman has the speaker card, so he will be calling people up to speak. If you wish to speak and you have not filled out a speaker card, we do have copies of the cards here and pens, so please take one and fill one out. At the end, he will open it up to make sure there's nobody else left who wishes to speak, but he will be calling people up at first. Speakers will have 3 minutes to address the commission. We will be timing here, so we will just indicate by saying time when the 3 minutes is up, and then please wrap up immediately when you hear time, and that'll be your time. I do understand that there may have been a request to donate time to other individuals. We will not be allowing that tonight, so we do encourage public participation, so please don't be intimidated by any formal nature of the meeting. So we encourage you, if you wish to speak, to go ahead and address the commission, get a speaker card. That being said, I think that's all we need to cover.
Thank you, Katie. First speaker, Joanne Porter. Pass. Thank you. Robert Robinson.
Chairman Bray and Commission, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm going to speak on the restriping of Van Buren Avenue. Presently, right now, there is a entrance, as was shown by Steve earlier, and at this point, for the residents of the neighborhood, we have run into situations where oncoming traffic, many times you're almost having head-in collisions. because of just the design and the flow and the amount of traffic that's there. And we feel with the restriping, now we've just increased the opportunity for a safety issue there, because now when a person passes 161st Avenue, they can immediately move over legally and get in that lane and pull into Wildflower, and vice versa, come in the other direction after they pass the Wildflower entrance, which, if I'm trying to get into my property, completely blocks me off from being able to access 161st Avenue. So the restriping would, to me and to our neighborhood, would create more of an issue than solving an issue. One of the things that's really bothering me about this whole dynamic is that when we bring up a concern, every resolution that we seem to get from the city is pro the occupant of the church and not anything to do with the neighborhood. And that's what we keep seeing from the city, is there is no advocate for the neighborhood. And on Sundays, the opportunity for this type of intersection issue would be greatly increased because of the amount of traffic that would block either the entrance for Wildflower and the other, 161st Avenue. So exiting the last meeting we had here a month ago, the pastor stopped us and he told us, he says, "We really want to be good neighbors with you." You know, and we're like, okay, we want to be good neighbors. But past history has shown us that they are not been good neighbors. 2 years ago on Halloween, I live 4 acres from the church. I hear a song at 10 o'clock at night, shaking my windows. I walk outside, they're playing Hey Jude at 10 o'clock at night. This is not a representation of a church, of something that should be happening at a neighborhood, the song and or other. And then this last Halloween, which you heard about, the traffic, everything was just chaos. And personally, as a Christian and the church that I go to, if I saw something like this as a body of Christ, and if I saw the kind of reaction that is coming from the neighborhood, I would think that the leadership of that church and the congregation would say, we need to really think this over and remove this recommendation. And I'm just not sure why that isn't happening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Next, Roy Sainez.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you for the opportunity of allowing me to come up here. On page 2, under purpose of the city staff report, it states that the proposed commercial full access driveway onto 161st Avenue will not be a material deterrent to the surrounding properties, that it will not be reasonably compatible with the uses in the surrounding neighborhood, and should not adversely affect residents living along 161st Avenue and Wade Lane. We, the residents, are here to stipulate that this driveway will be a material deterrent to the surrounding properties. It will degrade our rural community of life by introducing commercial traffic at the entrance and only access to our rural residential neighborhood, and the only one like it in Goodyear. It will depress residential property values and our investment in the community by promoting and encouraging traffic congestion at the doorway of our rural lifestyle neighborhood. We, the residents, are here to say that the driveway is not reasonably compatible with the uses in the surrounding neighborhood. The neighborhood originated in 1970s and to this day has maintained its quiet, large lot with livestock privileges, low traffic, and its rural characteristics. 161st Avenue is a dead-end rural residential street with no sidewalks or street lighting. Residents were recently informed by the city staff that the design of 161st Avenue is substandard, as it is too narrow, 28 feet. And I think you, Steve, alluded to that, to allow permit parking on both sides of the street. Residents, including children, walk in the street along 161st Avenue to get to Van Buren past the existing emergency driveway. If the commercial driveway is approved, these same pedestrians will then walk across a commercial driveway and alongside incoming and outgoing commercial traffic. The residents are here to articulate that this commercial driveway will adversely affect residents living along 161st Avenue and Wade Lane. Some of the residents have or will speak to the traffic safety problems due to the conflicting left turn movements on Van Buren at 161st Avenue and Wildfire Drive. The city's new proposal described in recommendation B3 does not eliminate the competing left turn lanes, but I believe it evaluates the left turn conflict to a much higher and dangerous level. And I think Rob alluded to that. If this commercial driveway is approved, council will open the gate for the owners of the vacant parcel across the street to the west to request access to 161st Avenue, since precedent will already have been established. If this commercial driveway is approved, could there not be other commercial properties in the city that will also request the same
Roy,
right
your time is up.
to have a commercial driveway on a local residential street, even if it's against the wishes of the residents of that neighborhood who would be most impacted by its effect? Thank you.
Next up, Delphine.
Delphine Signs. We live at 640 North 161st Avenue. Have lived there for 21 years. I am here to talk to or to speak to this project narrative that was put out by you, and we have the very last paragraph says this: we have discussed construction and opening this drive entrance to this with the city staff, and they are in support of us and its use as long as the neighbors do not object to it. Well, I think as you will hear this evening that our neighbors do object to it. So, and that was part of like the good neighbor. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Kitty Robinson.
Kitty Robinson. I live at 16073 West Wade Lane. I've lived there for 31 years this coming January, second longest resident there. The project narrative submitted use permit for the Northwest Drive interest submitted in August 2015 states that the purpose is to receive approval to construct and use a drive interest at the northwest corner of the property. It talks about easier access for the church facilities. It simplifies on-site circulation and parking for the church. It states that there will be no additional traffic to head north on 161st Avenue. It says that the estimated regular hours for use for the drive will be Sunday mornings and Wednesday evenings, and for special services and functions, but no amount of time for the year would be given for that, was given to that. The last sentence states, quote, we have discussed constructing and opening this drive interest with city staff, and they are in support of its use as long as the neighbors do not object to it, close quote. We are here to say we strongly object. We are insisting that both the City of Goodyear and the Compass Church adhere to and abide by the agreement made in 1999 and subsequent years between the residents, the city, and the church. That agreement states that the Northwest interests be used only for emergency vehicles. We are here to say, once again, that we strongly object to the variance request and are truly disappointed that we're even considering this matter. Rebecca Zook told us at a neighborhood meeting last week that there was no issue with coding to block the variance, but there is an issue. And that issue is not with coding, perhaps, but it's with the ethics of what's going on right now. There's an issue of trust and mistrust of our government officials and with those making this request. Two groups of people whom we should have no mistrust with. Promises made should be promises kept. We should not be even talking about this. The pastor informed us in November after the last EMP meeting that the services would also be starting on Sunday. Full disclosure, he said to us. But nowhere in the narrative is that information given. No time was it given forth to you. You only know of Sunday mornings and Wednesday evenings. Nothing about the Saturdays and of the many other events that occur during the week. We strongly object and ask that you, the city officials, abide by the previous agreement. We also ask that Compass Community Church honor its word and be the good neighbor it says it wants to be by withdrawing the variance request. There is another outlet available to the church since 1999. They've chosen not to use this option for 10 years. They've had 10 years to budget. Their budget issue should not be my life of living issue. That is not fair. That is not right. And instead, this church, this body, wants to continue to interfere with and negatively impact our quality of the lives, which Royce talked about. What may be legal may not and is not in this situation the right thing to do. We are asking,
Time.
honor your word.
Thank you. Joanne Usher.
Joan Usher. I live on 372 North 161st Avenue. I probably am one of the newest residents to the area, only being in the house for a year and a half. I did move to the area, though, because it was an agricultural area. We also own a business in the area. I have 2 young children, 10 and 13. I was encouraged because it was an agricultural situation, and also that we were surrounded by a church. My children also attend the Christian school that is on the opposite corner. So we felt actually very secure that we wouldn't be dealing with these types of issues. I would like to speak to the fact that I don't allow my children very much to be out in the front because there is heavy traffic. There's quite a bit of activity across at the church, us being basically almost right across the road from it. There are times when it is loud, and I just don't feel that it's safe for my children to be out in the front with the traffic. I can only see that getting worse. Addressing the agricultural part of it, I pull a very large living quarters horse trailer, and we're very active. I also think the striping that you're talking about is going to make it at times almost virtually impossible for me to pull my truck and trailer off Van Buren into 161st Avenue to even access our property. I also see if that driveway is granted, there will be times when I don't know what I would even do with my rig because I don't think I could even get it into our property. It's those reasons. Somebody also mentioned the noise issue. I live straight across the road from it. There are times in the evening I have to turn up my TV to be able to hear above the booms and the music from across the road. And don't get me wrong, I'm a Christian myself. I encourage what they're doing at the church, but I do not feel that that is neighborly. If that was a neighbor having some of the loud music, the carnivals they had over Halloween, I simply would have called the police as a nuisance and infringing on our rights as residents in the area. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Joan. Next, Kelly Caesar.
Good evening. Thank you for hearing us and our concerns. The nonprofit commercial business located on the corner of 161st Avenue and Van Buren state that they have a forward-thinking business. However, actions taken have shown otherwise. The business is allocating funds for expansion of their building by 60%. This is planned without addressing the already existing issues they have with their parking lot. They have a secondary access point from Van Buren onto their own commercial property. Utilizing this road would keep their commercial traffic on their commercial grounds. By using this access point off of Van Buren, the commercial property would not impede the local residents and property owners in the surrounding neighborhoods. Let it be noted they have made a conscious decision not to use this access road. The real question is, why are they expanding when they have current traffic issues within their own parking lot? The commercial businesses claim that there's not enough funding to expand and fix their parking issues on their lot, and that the only fiscally sound solution is to infringe on the neighborhood around them to solve their parking issues, all while expanding their own facilities. Poor planning, poor budgeting, and poor money allocation by the responsible parties at this nonprofit commercial business should not impact the day-to-day lives of the neighborhood. Also, has the church considered the increase in revenue that would occur due to the expansion of the complex? A larger facility means a larger congregation, which will in turn bring more money to the church. This will lead to the need for more development of the facility. Fix your own parking issues now using the land that you currently own, and this problem will be resolved for the future. Furthermore, the nonprofit commercial business is not paying property tax. Our neighborhood is. We have acreage lots with high property tax. Having limited access and impeding traffic flow in our neighborhood with one egress and ingress point will hurt our property tax and will mean less money for the city of Goodyear. There's a video on Vimeo at point about 2 minutes and 20 seconds in. The church discusses the construction plans, which include the use of, which is not coming up very clearly, a window right here saying that they will be able to see individuals drive into the parking lot. The only way you could see anything from this window is if you have that driveway in place. This tells me that the business made plans to increase the traffic. I'm sorry, I lost my place. This tells me that the commercial business made their plans to increase the traffic to use this driveway without having concurrence from the commission, from the city, and from the residents, without forward thinking and planning. This is not an example of good neighbors. This is an example of smoke and mirrors, manipulation, and businesses do not have a solid plan for growth. I would like to think that the city of Goodyear makes proactive plans for the future and does not want to make decisions that impact their tax-paying residents for a business that does not have a solid growth plan. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Thank you, Kelly. Lorenza Castro.
I'm the parent for Lorenzo.
Hello, my name is.
Let's try this one.
Test, test, test.
There you go. Now try that one.
Hello, my name is Lorenzo. Me and my family love to go for bike rides around our neighborhood. We have no sidewalk, so our street is used as our sidewalk. Now, if a driveway is opened on 161st Avenue, it will only become a safety issue with cars coming and going. I love riding my bike. Let's keep it safe from more cars. A driveway is just going to make it dangerous for me and my sisters and the people who like taking walks around our unique neighborhood.
Thank you, Lorenzo. Next up, Leticia Castro.
Good evening. My name is Leticia Castro. I live on 16036 West Wade Lane. And I want to just reiterate our opposition to amend the existing use permit. As you've heard, it sums up to 9 reasons why we oppose this. That original promise, that long-term precedence that this sets, the safety of both the community and the tenants of the church, the alternative option that they only have to pave a 650-foot road, and the city is willing to work with them with as long as it passes ground control or dust control. There also the lack of planning, the lack of no traffic control in place plan. They're expanding by a lot of footage, which means even more. The recommendation to keep studying this driveway, it's not even there. So how can we study it and make all these assumptions? Also, the interference of the quality of life for the neighborhoods, our properties being devalued. This commercial property, because that's what we're thinking about, and even though they are a church, we do not oppose the church, but we oppose them as a business. So has more than one method to come and go from their facilities. However, they choose not to use the second access. So this property's decision to access the driveway onto 161st Avenue raises more questions than answers. This property currently has an expansion site building project underway. As part of this budget, why not include plans to allocate funds to connect this roadway onto that APS driveway? Also, why would a commercial property choose to expand without addressing their parking and driveway problems it's had since the beginning? 161st Avenue driveway involves a cost as well. And even though they're saying it's double when they anticipate, it's still a cost. So they're willing to spend thousands of dollars on their projects, but not invest in this other option. They're making plans for the future and expanding into our neighborhood. Perhaps we can look at having maybe to encourage that being a good neighbor, more quarterly meetings with them to make sure that we don't have to come to this ground. Many of the questions that still remained unanswered can only be summarized in the following statement. All the commercial properties' decisions are a result of poor planning on their behalf and lack of consideration for our neighborhood. As a result, the commercial property wants, and if they want to make it right, at the expense of our neighborhood and our quality of life. And I have a copy of all of this to provide the city. In conclusion, we feel that everything that has negatively impacted our neighborhood is a result of this commercial property.
Time.
Thank you. Fernando Castro.
We, the residents of Way Lane and 161st Avenue, would like to state the following request and solutions. Keep Stipulation 8 in use in the use of permit. No vehicular ingress or egress from 161st Avenue shall be provided except for the purpose of emergency use. The church start being good neighbors and keep the promise that was made at the original planning meeting back in 1999. The church constantly says, both in verbal and written communication, that they are good neighbors. Yet if the pastor was really trying to be a good neighbor, he would encourage his congregation to park in the parking lot and use their plans for exit and entrance on Van Buren. And he would follow the 99 suggestion that they use the APS entrance from Van Buren. It might be more money to make the driveway towards the APS driveway, but isn't safety worth it for the parishioners and the residents? In conclusion, we feel that everything that have negative impacted our neighborhood is a result of the commercial property. For example, the Halloween event chaos, parking on both sides of the street by the business tenants, the insistence on removing the Stipulation 8 are just a few negative examples of the poor decision being made by the church. The commercial property has always had two exits and entry points onto Van Buren, yet they choose to only use one.
Thank you. Phyllis Pearson.
Good evening. I've been at 812 North 161st Avenue for 15 years, going on 16 years. So I was not there for the first issue when the church was saying they would not open that. But I was there for the 2003 issue of not opening that driveway. And I'm just really shocked that no one seems to get that 20-some-odd homes in that area is 75 minimum vehicles coming in and out, sometimes several times a day, as a normal way of life. Because there are horse properties, we're also talking about tractors and horse trailers and RVs and other ag equipment that has to move up and down through the street. And we're normal in other regard because we have to have trash pickup and mail delivery and all these other commercial issues that go along with normal everyday living. I don't think anyone seems to understand that the church has said, oh, we only need this driveway for 6 hours on Sunday. You can't tell these 75 vehicles that they don't need to go anywhere for 6 hours on Sunday. But what's worse than that is it's not just 6 hours on Sunday. It's already been expressed that it's 3 days a week that they're currently having activities, and the city, representatives of city, have used the term event special event, whatever you want to call it, as a blanket, and that is absolutely an open door called the slippery slope by most folks these days. Like, okay, we're truly saying you're giving them 24/7 access to the church through that driveway. And this is really, really crippling. Having been there 15 years, I know that the level of traffic has increased with other development. Things are not getting any easier, and we're not thrilled with what we have, but to have something taken away from us that was guaranteed to us as recent as 2003. We were never even told there was a chance of it being opened as a regular driveway, that it could be revisited later and taken away from us. So when we need to move away from a very inconvenient place to be, how do we get a buyer that isn't going to feel the same way? And that's where the devaluation of our property comes in. The minister spoke to us right after the last meeting and told us that he didn't know about any of the issues that we were discussing with him. And every event that's been held there has been traffic on our street. There has been some parking on private property, but the worst of it is there's been congregation in the street, and the minister let us know that they have no control over that. So we're just looking at a future of much, much more and much, much worse, and it doesn't feel good at all to be dismissed. Thank you.
Thank you. Vernon Rogers.
My name's Vernon Rogers, live at 540 North 161st Avenue, Goodyear. Good evening, Councilman. I appreciate you taking your time to listen to our concerns. One of the concerns I have is if they park only on the west side, which they now are going to make, that's already been determined it's going to happen, that's just going to make their turning radius shorter coming in on it if there's people parked along there. They will not be able to pull out like normal people. They have to cut across traffic to do that, to pull out on the road. The other thing is we have children walking up that street every day to school. We do not have sidewalks. They walk up that street. That's just another concern that it's a safety issue, kids walking up that street. We have neighborhood coming from Wildflower walking down our street just to walk down the middle of it because it's a rural area. It's nice and peaceful. They look at the horses, they visit with people. Also, my biggest concern is once you open up that driveway, it's a commercial driveway, they can go back to preschool, they can use it all day long, they can use it every day, all day long. There's nobody going to say, you can't use that street only except on Sunday. It's going to be used every single day. I can guarantee you that. And that is not a quality safety thing. The safety people that invested that, they didn't look at 7 days a week. They looked at one day a week. And that is not acceptable, especially with the new property that's going to be pretty soon. It's going to be a commercial also. And what's that impact going to be? It's not a safe thing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Vernon.
Any questions?
David Ramirez.
David Ramirez, 740 North 161st Avenue. My wife and I have been residents of that street for 28 years. I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. I strongly oppose the conversion of the 161st Avenue driveway from fire access only to full commercial access. I have consistently opposed this since 2003. I have always supported the council stipulation to the 2003 use permit, fire access only driveway. Applicant agreed to work with APS for joint use access to the APS driveway. In the council's decision in 2003, they listened to and heard the residents' concerns, and they denied the commercial access back in 2003. The conditions that applied then apply now, only magnified. The traffic impact analysis that was submitted with the current application predicts greater than a 200% increase of in and out traffic during peak usage on Sunday as a result of the full utilization of the building expansion currently under construction. So this church is in a serious need to acquire a second driveway access. They've put it off as long as they possibly can. they have no choice. They have to have another access. At your meeting on November 18th, P&Z Commission asked the applicant to explore access to the APS driveway to provide a second driveway connection. They've done that. I appreciate them doing that. It sounds like APS is open to that agreement. It has to be made. But now it's a cost issue. In my opinion, cost should never be an excuse or justification for putting a burden on other properties. 12 years have gone by between 2003 and 2015, and the city is again asking the applicant to explore the shared driveway with APS, which is the preferred alternative. Neighborhood residents are again coming out in force to oppose the commercial driveway on 161st Avenue and to support the APS driveway connection as stipulated in 2003. And it seems that on January 25th, the council will be asked to decide the matter again. I don't know how much the current building expansion is costing the church that is driving the need for the second driveway connection, but the building permit lists the valuation at about $723,000. The parking access issue predates the building expansion by many years. I wish the applicant had incorporated the APS connection into the design and the financial arrangements of the current building expansion to address the issue, so that they wouldn't have to come to the city and request the commercial driveway at 161st. Thank you for your opportunity.
Thank you, David. Is there any other members of the public that would like to address the commission at this time for this issue? Seeing none, the public hearing is closed. Can I have a motion on this item?
I would like to say before I make a motion that the best of all projects are ones where everybody is in agreement that this is a good way to proceed, both the neighborhood and the city staff and the developer or owner of a property. Obviously, we don't have that situation here, so the commission has the unenviable task of listening to all sides and trying to balance those and come up with a reasonable approach that we think as responsive as we can be. Given that, I would like to make a motion on item 15-300-0000 to approve the amendment for the use permit for Compass Church to remove the stipulation prohibiting vehicular access onto North 161st Avenue subject to the staff stipulations. But I would also like to ask the staff if it's possible to work with the church or perhaps add a stipulation that the church needs to come up with a long-term strategy on how they're going to handle their traffic and how they're going to work with their constituents to respect the safety concerns and the parking concerns of the neighbors and potentially to work with APS to open that up as an alternative at some point, reasonable point in the future.
Is there a second to Commissioner Short's motion?
I second that motion.
The motion to approve?
Motion is to approve.
The motion is approved to put it on the table so there can be discussion.
Thank you.
Katie?
Yes, I actually, just a point of order, Commissioner Short made a recommendation. I might we're discussing the recommendation on if we would do a stipulation, how we might do that, but the best way to proceed may be to go ahead and make a motion so you can have discussion, and then you can amend that motion if it's decided by all commissioners that a stipulation should be added. And so just a point of order for the audience, in order to discuss the item, there has to be a motion. So they need to move to approve the item, or in other words, so that they can have this discussion. Right. So I might make that suggestion so that you can have further discussion.
Make it a clean motion so that we can discuss it.
And then discuss it, and then decide as a group if you'd like to amend that.
Discuss with the commissioners and also with city staff as to how we might approach some additional work with the church to be a good neighbor about their parking and use of the street and the exits and entrances.
So do you want to clarify her motion? Commissioner Short, will you
We need
clarify your motion just
I
to
just
move
did.
it?
We just need a second, I think, to discuss
A second?
I second this motion.
Motion by Commissioner Short, seconded by Commissioner Kish. Is there any discussion about the issue? Commissioner Kish?
I think we do need to discuss this and have an understanding between what we are thinking as opposed to what is important in this matter, and so we can give this matter more gravity then. So how would a discussion?
The discussion has to take place now in the public forum, so whatever concerns you have now, feel free to raise them.
I do not believe that the church is being manipulative or being sly in their dealings with the community. I believe that they are trying to grow and do the best thing for their church, and at the same time trying to reach out and be good neighbors. However, I do see some very passionate people in the audience today that wish this to not happen. And with seeing this, I believe that it is important that we let democracy and let people let their voices be heard. And in this case, I think we have to not approve this.
Commissioner Maloney?
I also have been listening to all the passionate responses to this, and I do think that the church does have an obligation to its neighbors and making this as smooth a process as possible. With the growth of the future growth of the church, this is only going to be more contentious. And I feel that the church needs to come up with a plan for future development as the church grows to be that good neighbor.
Any further discussion by the commission?
I just want to be clear, the motion is to approve the recommendation.
Correct.
By doing so, this would now allow the church to use 161st Avenue if we vote for the motion.
Correct.
Correct.
That's the motion on the table.
Okay.
Any other discussion by the commission? With that,
Just sorry, Chairman, Commissioner Short, I might recommend if you wish to propose an additional stipulation, you might, based on what you were stating, my understanding is you would want to make a stipulation saying that approval for any other improvements shall be contingent upon the property owner working with the city on a long-term plan for solving the issues brought up.
Katie, I think that's definitely part of it, but I would also like the stipulation to be on the church to develop a strategy for handling parking and traffic flow under existing conditions with the opening of this new entry-exit, and to have a long-term strategy for working with APS as an alternative. I don't think we want to put a time limit on making that happen, but I think clearly stating that we would like to have that be an ultimate goal.
yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Commission, if I can add to that, we ought to tie that to something concrete, as Katie was attempting to do there.
Absolutely. I would. Good point. What I was wanting to do was to add to what Katie so aptly said, not substitute for it.
Such as at the time of permitting requests, should this commission and should the council approve this, at the time of permitting requests for the driveway, that the church would supply this documentation. Would tie that to a specific
Actually,
timeline.
Christopher, I'd like to see that happen now, that with this opening, if this gets approved, that the church have a strategy for working with its constituents on the right way to, I don't want to say the right way, on the most thoughtful way to use their parking and their egress and entryway in ways that are considerate of the neighborhood's concerns about safety. I don't know exactly how you word that, but you guys are smart about words. But if we're going to open that up, then it seems to me that it would be reasonable to expect the church to work with the people that are using their church property on how to be good neighbors about how they park and where they park.
Thank you, Chairman Commissioner Short. For clarification, are you suggesting that they create a plan that would have the end of then no longer needing the commercial access on 161st? Or are you suggesting that they work to create additional, using that plus any other ideas they could have?
Additional. I'm not suggesting that be taken back away from them, but I'd like to see them continue this effort with APS and with finding a funding source to eventually open that up.
Thank you. And we making that suggestion to the church and to staff, we would definitely contact them, but we do want to make sure that there is some kind of teeth to it so that we have the ability to require them to do this. I don't mean to suggest that the church wouldn't want to work with us on these plans.
So if it's all right with you, I would make the recommendation for an additional stipulation along those lines and let staff work on appropriate wording. Can we do it that way?
I think we understand
what you would like to see,
what you're trying to achieve. So if you wanted to amend your motion to be per the recommended stipulation, you could do that. So.
Thank you, Commissioner Short. One of the things that I would like to address before we go into the vote is the striping issue on Van Buren. If one of the city staff, traffic or engineering, could speak to that, because I frequently travel up and down Van Buren, and I could see that by just taking away a turn lane, how that could be problematic in that area.
Members of the Commission, I'm Luke Albert, City Traffic Engineer. The two-way left turn lane striping we proposed would, the benefit of it would be that it would allow more stacking eastbound into the 161st Avenue when the church would be busier, and then westbound stacking onto Wildflower Drive when Wildflower Drive would be busier, and not limit the amount of storage to just what is today, eastbound and westbound. The two-way left turn lane striping it's a very accepted use of striping. Motorists do understand in driving it that you do have to be mindful of other motorists in the other direction. So I think be similar to the two-way left turn lane striping you have like on Litchfield Road or some other streets in the city. So I think that motorists getting into the two-way left turn lane too early is, while it's a concern of the residents, I think people drivers are familiar with the striping and would be able to maneuver and go around opposing turning vehicles. There are not any really. We went back and looked at 8 years of collision data at that intersection, or those two intersections. There haven't been anything but rear-end crashes for the last 8 years. So there hasn't been any existing traffic issues out there, except for just rear-end. There's been 8 rear-end collisions in 8 years, which is common on any major street where we'd have people turning. So we don't believe that the two-way left turn lane striping would negatively impact the situation. That it really doesn't have a safety issue from a traffic standpoint today.
Thank you.
Any additional questions about that?
No, sir. No. Any further discussion by the Commission?
Thank you. Chairman, may I make another clarification?
Yes.
Just to clarify on that stipulation, I just want to make it clear that we will draft a stipulation that addresses the intent that Commissioner Short was trying to achieve, but I do want to clarify that we will review that with our legal department too. So they will ensure that that stipulation is valid and we're able to make that requirement. So they may make suggestions that regarding that. But we will draft a stipulation. It will be in the staff report for the city council. So once that staff report is posted, the applicant and the public and the commission will all be able to see that language and can provide comment to staff or at city council if anyone has comment on that new stipulation, since we don't have the exact language to provide you tonight.
Thank you, Katie. With that, the motion on the table is to approve the use permit amended to remove the stipulation prohibiting vehicles access onto 161st Avenue with an additional stipulation provided by Commissioner Short. With that, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Aye. Motion fails. Next item.
Just for clarifications for our citizens in the audience, can we just get a show of hands on who voted who, which way? So the motion.
You want to call for a roll call vote?
Well, you already took it, but we'll just make sure that everybody understands what took place and who the vote tabulation. So
I think with that, then we should just do a roll call.
You can do a roll call vote. Yes, that's fine.
So with that, we'll do a roll call vote.
Commissioner Kish?
Nay.
Commissioner Maloney?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Nay.
Commissioner Short?
Yay. Yes.
Chairman Bray?
No.
The motion failed.
3-2.
Those that did attend for the old business session, we appreciate you participating in this process, and feel free to excuse yourself as we move forward with the rest of the meeting, and thank you. New business, item 8.1, special use to allow the installation of a Verizon wireless communication facility at 2501 North Pebble Creek Parkway. And I will open the public hearing, and Alex will present the case.
Good evening, Commissioners. Chairman Bray. I'll wait a second.
Okay. We'll wait just a second.
Hello?
You hold that closer, Alex. Thank you.
All right. Good evening. Shaw and Associates, on behalf of Verizon Wireless, is requesting a special use permit to allow 55-foot monopalm on an existing pad on the southeast corner, of Pebble Creek Parkway and Virginia Avenue. The pad is zoned C2 General Commercial, and the facility will take up 533 square feet of the 1.6-acre parcel. The placement and size of the facility will allow the future development of the site for its designated C2 usage. Excuse me. The facility and equipment will be concealed by an 8-foot decorative screen wall that will be consistent with the design standards of the adjacent properties. As I mentioned before, it will utilize the monopalm design, so it'll look like a palm tree to blend in with the desert landscape that Goodyear offers. There is a diesel-driven backup generator in the event of a power loss. The generator will run once a week for testing purposes, and the facility will also include an air conditioner to cool the equipment inside the shelter. Routine maintenance will be performed once a month. All design and placement criteria have been met, and public notification requirements have been satisfied. And I can take any questions if you have any.
Any questions for Alex? No. Would the applicant like to speak to this item? Please.
Rick Shaw, 1222 West Cave Dell Drive, Phoenix 85085. I don't have anything specific to add other than Verizon's got some issues in the area with LTE service, which is the video phone service for your smartphones. The site will provide that service as well as voice enhancement. It's designed to help with the future growth in the area, which we believe is going to be pretty significant commercially and residentially. Getting that site in there was a little bit difficult. We actually were looking to the north at the existing APS substation. Right now, there's an existing AT&T tower, AT&T site up there on the APS poles that are outside the APS substation. So Verizon wasn't able to use that pole. APS was unwilling to allow co-location below their conductors, and it couldn't be extended. There's an additional pole in that area slightly to the north. T-Mobile is talking with APS about that, and they have an option to lease that tower. So after looking at those things and looking at the rest of the area and the growth potential of the area, the Verizon engineers actually felt that moving to the south would be a better solution, both from a coverage perspective as well as from a planning and zoning and future use perspective. So that's how we ended up at that property. It seems to be a good site, a good solution for Verizon and for the residents in the area to place that site right there and have it stealth to look like a monopalm. If anybody has any questions about the site, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions for the applicant?
No.
I do not have any speaker cards, but is there anybody from the public that would like to address the commission on this issue? Seeing none, can I have a motion?
Chairman Bray, I move that we recommend approval to item number 153500007.
Is there a second?
I second.
It has been moved by Commissioner Kish, seconded by Commissioner Maloney to approve 15-300-0004. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Barnes?
I have one thing to say to the applicant and the industry as a whole. The palm tree is fine, but I think the industry misses an opportunity to create some great architecture, sculpture. There's a lot of things that we could do that would really beautify the city instead of just the tower or just the palm tree or the fir tree. So if you would, when you take it back to your client, just mention to them that the community would like to see something a little more interesting.
Thank you, Commissioner Barnes. Any further discussion? No. With that, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item 8.2, use permit for assisted living facility on 9.1 acres at the southwest corner of Pebble Creek Parkway and Clubhouse Drive in the Pebble Creek Phase 2 planned area development. With that, I will open the public hearing. And it looks like Katie's going to present to us.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the commission. Yes, I apologize. Joe Schmitz was not able to make it tonight, so I'll be making the staff presentation in his place. As stated, this is a request for an assisted living facility on 9 acres located at Pebble Creek Parkway and Clubhouse Drive. The proposal includes a 309,000 square foot building located with 225 assisted living units. The height of the building is 29 feet 4 inches, and all of the building standards adhere to the C1 neighborhood commercial zoning district criteria. This is a use permit to allow the use of an assisted living facility. In the past, they had applied for a rezoning of the property. They had a larger building, but after working with the community, they actually revised the plans, made the building shorter to fit into the neighborhood commercial district standards, and now have a building that conforms, and it's now a use permit use. There was a citizen review meeting held on Thursday, December 3rd. Approximately 50 to 60 residents were in attendance. There were concerns noted, mainly regarding traffic coming in and out of the site. There was a stipulation added, stipulation number 12, to address this concern. The applicant will either add a left turn lane into this entrance here that's on Pebble Creek Parkway, so they will have to modify the median to add that left turn lane. However, if there are, they have to do some research, and there may be utilities in the median that would not allow that. So if that is the case and they're not able to modify this left turn lane, then they will be restriping Clubhouse Drive instead, to make it function a little better for this new use to alleviate the traffic. So those two options will be evaluated at the site plan level, and one will be determined. But as I said, the first option will be looking at this left turn lane, and if that's not possible, they'll be going to the Clubhouse Drive restriping option. But one of those two solutions will be carried forth through the site plan process. They have provided elevations of the site and the facility, which do meet the design guidelines for the city of Goodyear. The entire proposal meets the general plan, zoning ordinance, and design guidelines for the city of Goodyear, and so staff has recommended approval of the use permit. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Todd Fitzgerald is also in attendance representing the applicant, and I know he would be happy to answer any questions you may have regarding the proposal.
Thank you, Katie. Are there any questions for staff? None? We will get to the public portion of it here shortly, and you will be able to address the commission and staff. I think we can do clarifying questions that will not infringe on your 3 minutes. Yes. Is the applicant? Would you like to speak? Please come forward. State your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Todd Fitzgerald. With BNR Engineering, 9666 East Riggs Road, Sun Lakes, Arizona, 85248. I'm here representing Pebble Creek Commercial LLC, and we're before you to request approval of use permit, as Katie said, to operate an assisted living facility within C1 parcel. Again, as Katie said, it's been about a year worth of different trials. We started with a much taller, much bigger facility that was met with much resistance from our residents, and that application was abandoned, and we're before you now with something that fits within the C1 designation building standards. We feel it's a great use for this site, complements our development, allows residents to age in place. We've run these. We have another one in Sun Lakes that we're expanding currently. We feel this would be as successful as that one is, and we look forward to moving forward with it and request its approval. I'm here to answer any other questions, if there are any now or after further discussion. Yes, ma'am.
My only concern with this plan is that on Clubhouse Drive, there is so much activity in there now, like in the morning when construction people are coming in or vendors are coming in. That is a very, very busy area. And then to think that a left-hand turn going into the facility would be the best use of that. I don't understand how they're getting that idea. I can see on Clubhouse Drive, if you could take a left going into the facility there. I mean, I think that would alleviate so many problems that the residents are concerned with.
There has been a great deal of discussion to that end, and it did come up at our most recent community meeting, and it was at that discussion that it came up that if provided there's no physical barriers to providing that, that's something that we're willing to entertain and add that northbound left turn lane in to alleviate a lot of that.
And when would that be?
Together with
discussion of the turn in on
during site plan approval with staff, assuming this moves forward and is granted an approval.
Any further questions for the applicant?
Question for staff, is that a stipulation we would have to add now, or is that a stipulation that, just to be clear?
Katie?
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioner Kish. The stipulation is already in. It's stipulation number 12 covers the left turn or the striping options during site plan.
Any other questions? I do have some, thank you.
Thank you.
I do have some comments from the public. Again, 3 minutes, and we'll ask that staff time that. We will allow for a few clarifying questions, and please be specific as possible. We will start with Lori Miller. Perfect. If you could come all the way to the mic and your name and address, please.
My name is Lori Miller. My address is 3512 North Casper Drive. So my house is across the street from this facility. So my backyard will be looking at
You're right here.
yeah, so this is elevation F will be right out my backyard. So initially my question is, how high is this building going to be now? Because some of the other residents have different information than what I've been told. So can we get some clarification on what is the height actually going to be? What are we looking at?
Chris or Katie?
Okay. So I'd like to know actually what we're looking at height-wise, because my understanding is that while the roof height is 29.5, that the parapet walls are 34.5, and that the architectural, I don't know what you call them, but that they are 39.5. So my other question was, what was the other plan's height that was considerably higher than this? What was the height of that? So how much have we lowered it? Because we had a tremendous amount of opposition from the residents at the height of the building. And now I'm not sure that we've actually really lowered it that much. So that's one question. Some people were told that the architect was digging down. And so I have some question about, are they digging down? I also have a question is, what is the process to ensure that the height is really going to be what the plans say? Does someone shoot height levels on that? Does the staff do that? And what are they using as ground level? Because that's where I would be asking about that digging down process. I live in a height restriction area somewhere else, and there's an exact point where we shoot levels for the height so we can tell exactly if roof levels are off and people have had to lower them. So I wondered what the process is for that in Goodyear. Can the residents be present for that process and participate in that? And what happens if the builder builds it too high? Do they make them lower it?
Okay, I will allow the applicant to. Do you have any other clarifying questions?
That's what I got right now.
Okay, I'll allow the applicant to come up and just address the height of the building and the change from the former plan to the plan of today.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, do I need my address again? Or?
No.
In terms of the heights, it was 46 to the top of the ridge line, I believe. We've got Brian, our architect, here as well. In case, Brian, correct me please if I say anything inaccurate. 46 feet to the top of the ridge line previously. This building height within city code is measured to the top of flat roof, which is 29'4". That's from finished grade up to the top of the flat roof. Then there are parapet walls, I understand, to be allowed that are 5 feet higher than the top of roof. And then architectural embellishments, as long as they don't contain mechanical equipment or be occupied, I believe is the other one, which they are not. So there's some 5-foot sections above the top of roof, and periodically there's sections that would be 10 feet above top of roof for embellishments, which I understand to be within code for all the city's zoning criteria. There is a part of the design takes the building 2 feet below finished grade, which is going to be accommodated with wheelchair ramps and meets all building design criteria but it's done in order to allow the building to function within site limitations. I feel like there was one more, but
The difference between this height and the previous.
the other building was 46 feet tall at the top of roof line.
46 and then with enhancements and parapet, or 46 total? That's where I'm.
There were embellishments. Do you know that answer, Brian? I'll let Brian answer that, please.
Absolutely.
My name is Brian Anderson with BMA Architecture. The architect on this, my address 1044 West Sunwood Drive in Gilbert, Arizona. The previous building that was originally presented, the top of roof, as Todd had stated, was at 46 foot 5. I'm sorry. The top of the architectural embellishments was at 46 foot 5 inches. So the towers that you see around in each corner, those heights were at 46 foot 5 inches. The top of the roof of the mansard roof was 40 feet 5 inches, and that was the average height around the top of the roof line. The new roof line is now at 29 foot 4 inches. That is per the design guidelines in the city of Goodyear. The architectural embellishments parapet heights is at 34 feet 4 inches, and architectural embellishments is up to 39 foot 4 inches. So again, where you see the towers on each corners, those are maxed out at 39 foot 4 inches. My understanding with City of Goodyear code requirements are we're allowed up to 5 feet for parapet walls to hide mechanical equipment and to add architectural interest into the elevations in the building so it fits within the community and the overall design guidelines of the City of Goodyear. We're allowed an additional 5 feet above the maximum roof line.
Any other questions? Nope. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Miller, I will give you 3 minutes to make general comments about the proposal.
Thank you. Previously, when this building was brought forward, there was a tremendous amount of opposition because of the height of the building. I think at this point, we do not have as many residents here opposing this because they were under the impression that it was now going to be 29.5 feet, which is the roof height. But really, when you add the parapets and the architectural embellishments, we're looking at primarily 34.5 feet and in quite a few cases, 39.5 feet. I think if the residents had known this, you'd see a lot more people here in this room today. All we did was lower it by a few feet from where we had a tremendous amount of opposition. And in fact, they have raised it in some places because it used to be 2 stories in quite a bit of the building, and now the whole thing is 3 stories. Also, I want to ask you, what makes this an assisted living rather than an apartment complex? Because really, this is right in the center of single-family dwellings, and it's 3 stories, and it's so out of context with the whole rest of the neighborhood that it's almost, you can just imagine there's just 1 story all through Pebble Creek, and then in this one spot, here's this 3-story building. It's got 247 car spaces. So why isn't this considered high-density housing? I notice in their other assisted living facilities, they are marketing these apartments as apartments. And so they're really high-density housing apartments, but they add meals and stuff as an additional feature. But they don't do really any medical stuff in this building. It's just high-density housing. So I would like the committee to take that into consideration, that we're actually putting high-density housing in the middle of a single-family resident area. The other thing I would like you to take into consideration is if this goes through, that we have a process in effect for measuring the height and making sure that the contractor is meeting those restrictions. So those are my concerns. I thank you very much for listening to me, and please take that into consideration.
Thank you, Lori. Next up, Jerry Santee.
Jerry Santi. I live on West Earl Drive in Pebble Creek, and this apartment complex is going up in my backyard. Last May, we addressed this group and had a lot of concerns, and I'm happy to announce, and I'm pleased that the Robeson people pulled their original request, and they did address our concerns, and I'm happy about that. My concerns now are still the height of the building, because I'm a little confused now. When I attended a meeting a couple weeks ago in Pebble Creek, I was told that they were going to remove all the stuff on top of the roof. I'm pretty sure they told us that. So we came away from that meeting pretty pleased. From what I just heard, they're going to drop the building 2 feet into the ground, but they're still going to have all that stuff on top of the building. So I don't see where we're gaining very much reduction in height, and that bothers me. I have no problem with the retirement home on this location. It's a much better idea than a Circle K or a campground or an RV park or something. So I'm not against the fact that it's a retirement community. I am against the fact that, number one, it's going to be too tall, and number two, again, the same argument is the congestion coming in off Clubhouse Drive is going to be a madhouse. We were told at this meeting a couple weeks ago that they were going to add another entrance off Pebble Creek Parkway, which would partially solve our problem. It would greatly reduce the congestion right in front of the fire department and right in front of our main gate. If they can't do a cut through on that deal, why can't they have a right turn lane or a right turn into the retirement community going south on Pebble Creek Parkway? People that would normally make a right on Clubhouse Drive and come in and then make another left could go straight down Pebble Creek Parkway and make a right to go right into it. And they would not be coming into our community. They would not be coming into our main gate or the fire department. One of the arguments for this is the fact that there's a great demand for retirement living here. Last fall, I visited all three of the other retirement communities that are right across the street from Pebble Creek. I checked with two of them again today. Two of them are at 50% occupancy. That doesn't sound like a great demand to me. This would be the fourth retirement community across the street from Pebble Creek. I have no problem with it being a retirement community.
That's time.
Well, as long as it isn't too tall and too congestive.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you. Mark Pelletier.
Where's Lorenzo when I need him? My name's Mark Pelletier, 15742 West Fairmount in Goodyear. I'm on the other side of Pebble Creek. Chairman Bray, members of the commission, I actually favor this proposal with one reservation, and that is stipulation 12, and two words in that stipulation, either or. Stripe Clubhouse Drive or make a cut entrance across Pebble Creek Parkway. Both of these items should and must be required. Restriping Clubhouse Drive is mandatory. Currently, 2 lanes enter Pebble Creek, the right-hand lane for residents using an automated gate and the left-hand lane for visitors using the manned gatehouse. Pebble Creek traffic exiting past the gatehouse is on a single-lane road that only begins to widen to a left-hand turn lane and 2 traffic lanes by the time it gets to Pebble Creek Parkway. That spot where it only begins to widen is the exact spot where the driveway for this facility is. In order to create a left turn lane, entering the Renaissance from Clubhouse would require shortening this left turn lane on Pebble Creek Parkway North in order to make room. There's probably room for this, but all of this absolutely requires restriping. So the restriping should not be an alternative to anything. It is a requirement. Pebble Creek Patrol statistics show approximately 1,000 entries through this gatehouse every day. Even if one half of the estimated 640 movements by the Renaissance went through Clubhouse Drive, that would increase the traffic in this small area 32%. As well, this side of Pebble Creek is only 57% built out. Therefore, there will be 75% more homes on that side of Pebble Creek eventually. And none of those figures I've quoted even talk about the exiting traffic that drives right past the fire station and right past this spot. The left turn access from northbound Pebble Creek is absolutely needed to remove a significant portion of the Renaissance traffic from Clubhouse Drive, where motorists will be required to negotiate opposing left turn lanes in a small area and then to make a turn at an uncontrolled intersection into this facility. And by the way, when I went by there tonight, if I put myself where that turn lane will be, the view of the traffic coming out of Pebble Creek is partially obstructed because you're only 50 or 75 feet away from the clubhouse. So considerations of traffic flow, convenience,
Time.
and not just for Pebble Creek motorists, but also for
That's
the
time,
Renaissance
Mark.
people, demand this be done.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the audience that would like to address the commission? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing. And can I have a motion?
I move that we approve use permit 15-300-0004 for an assisted living facility on the southwest corner of Pebble Creek Parkway and Clubhouse Drive.
Second.
It has been moved by Commissioner Short and seconded by Commissioner Barnes. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, point of order. Does that include staff stipulations?
Yes.
It does. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries. Thank you. 8.3, special use permit for a mini storage and RV storage facility within the Estrella 85 Commerce Park planned area. I will open the public hearing, and it looks like Katie will be presenting again.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the Commission. And once again, Karen Craver was not able to attend tonight, so I'll be making the staff presentation on her behalf. This request is for a mini storage and RV storage. The property is located along Estrella Parkway, just north of MC 85, across from the IMSAMET facility, and just south of the existing budget mini storage facility. This project is actually an extension of that facility. The owner of the budget storage is the person who's purchasing this property. The project includes 40,000 square feet of building with 360 mini storage units, 98 RV storage parking spaces that have a canopy, and 135 open parking spaces for RV storage. Elevations were submitted, which you can see, which meet the City of Goodyear's design guidelines. One item I did want to mention, I believe the applicant will be addressing the commission regarding stipulation number 7. The applicant requested that the required screen wall around the building be permitted to be a wrought iron screen wall rather than a block wall. The city staff is recommending that it be a block wall screen wall in accordance with the City of Zoning Ordinance standards to screen the RV, any loading and unloading of U-Haul type equipment, again, per our city standards. But otherwise, the City of Goodyear does recommend approval of the request with the recommended stipulations. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have, and representatives of the applicant are also here to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for staff? Would the applicant like to speak? State your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. Matt Locken. Can you hear me? Matt Locken, Snell and Wilmer, here on behalf of the applicant, Cooper Architecture and Design, and the property owner. Here seeking a special use permit to allow for mini storage and RV parking on an 8.8 acre site. It is located at the northwest corner of Estrella Parkway and MC 85. Just a little bit, we've already got an overview, but just a little bit more about the property. It is zoned I-2. It's within the Estrella 85 Commerce Park PAD overlay. And the site, this is, okay, yep. So the site is located immediately to the north of railroad tracks owned by Union Pacific. And other adjoining uses include a recycling facility to the east, a furniture manufacturing facility to the west, and, as was mentioned, an additional storage facility to the north. So overall, the site and the surrounding uses are compatible with the proposed use. And some additional details about the site. Let's see. To the east, so you can see here, there's going to be a 43,000 square foot building. It's a two-story building. The RV parking is going to be located to the north and to the south. There's 98 enclosed RV parking spaces, and then an additional 135 spaces, open parking spaces to the west and to the interior of the property, west of the proposed building. With respect to the exterior screening and fencing, the applicant already owns the existing storage facility to the north, and there's an 8-foot fence along the common property boundary, and staff would be supportive of a determination that the screening requirement and the fencing requirement has already been met to the north. Similarly, the staff has indicated that they would support some screening to the east that incorporated wrought iron and some heavy landscaping features. As mentioned, Stipulation 7, as written currently, would require block wall, slump block wall, masonry wall to the south and to the west. As I mentioned, this property is unique in that it has railroad track running to the south, and this includes 200 feet of right-of-way that contains some natural landscaping, desert landscaping to the south that runs all along the southern property border. And so we would request that Stipulation 7 be modified, not to eliminate the need for a block wall. That may ultimately be what staff decides is best, but just to provide some flexibility, both to ensure compatibility with the eastern fencing and with the natural landscaping that's found to the south. We actually had the architect here tonight, and he'd be happy to speak more to design standards that staff may be willing to support. But essentially, the request is not to make a determination at this time, but to leave it up to staff to review and approve the final design plan.
Any questions for the applicant? So just to make it clear, the applicant is asking that we relax stipulation number 7 to give staff leeway in determining.
Yeah, and correct. I don't even know if relax is the right way to put it, because they may ultimately decide that block wall is the best option. We were thinking maybe a gabion wall that had some wrought iron with rock inside it might actually look a lot nicer and be more cost effective than a slump block wall. So it may be that block is ultimately what staff decides is best, but we just wanted to build in some flexibility to have them review other options.
Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? Nope. Commissioner Kish?
Question for staff. I just wanted to, my only concern with changing the from fence to block wall to fence would be to keep consistent with other buildings in the area. I don't want it to stand apart and be more of an eyesore. I don't think it's going to be ugly, but just stay consistent with the city of Goodyear with other buildings in that area. That's my only concern.
I believe the way that they have drafted the revision of Stipulation 7, the staff will still ultimately have the ability to determine maybe there's flexibility on the north end, but not so much on the south end. And I think that this new stipulation, the way it's drafted, is okay. But I will defer to staff as if they feel comfortable with it.
Thank you, Chairman Bray.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the Commission. I apologize for the discussion on the side. We're not opposed to flexibility. I don't know what we're going to learn that would, that we haven't learned already that would have staff change our mind. We might make a suggestion that the proposed revised stipulation that was just handed out to you as proposed by the applicant maybe revised further to say the final design of which may include limited metal or other materials as determined by the planning division, so that it's not a full metal fence at the very, so there's at least, we know that it won't be a full metal fence, and that we can work with them on whether it should be full block wall or include some metal elements to it as well. We would be in favor of the amended stipulation.
Thank you, Katie. And I believe the applicant would be okay with that as well.
Be happy with that change.
Thank you. Any further questions for the applicant? Would anybody from the audience like to speak? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing, and I will ask for a motion.
I move to approve case 15-350-00005 with the proposed revision to Stipulation 7 as drafted by staff and handed to us.
Is there a second?
A second.
The motion was by Commissioner Barnes, seconded by Commissioner Kish. Any discussion?
No.
Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Are there any staff communications? Chris?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, Commission. On your cover memo that Steve Kretschmer produced, we started doing this a while ago with a little table of summarizing actions that the council has taken on cases that you have rendered a recommendation to on. And because of the sequence of our meetings recently, the council action wasn't filled in because the council meeting didn't happen until Monday. So that's why it wasn't in here. But just for your benefit, I'd like to tell you the disposition of those particular cases, just so you're aware. The Verizon wireless special use permit that the Planning Commission considered on November 18th was, in fact, approved by the council on December 14th. The C3 Church special use permit that you heard on November 18th was approved by the council on December 14th as well. And the El Cedro PAD amendment to allow some smaller side yard setbacks was approved by the council on December 14th as well. That's my report.
Thank you.
And certainly on behalf of all of us, I'd certainly like to thank you for your service this year to us and to our citizens, giving of your time. Wish you and your families a Merry Christmas and a very happy and healthy New Year.
We appreciate that, and I think the same from the commission. One question before we adjourn here. Did we decide that we will have a special meeting? And if so, the date, time?
Yes, sir. That's correct. We have decided to have the special meeting to consider the Hudson Commons PAD request. It will be on January 6th at our normal time at 6 p.m.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Any further staff communication?
I would like to add one more thing, if I could, to encourage commissioners to reapply. For those of you who have expiring terms, we would greatly appreciate that.
You want to call him out, Katie? There being no further business to discuss, this meeting is adjourned.